Hey guys, welcome to part 6 of the action adventure tutorial. Check out what we're going to do in this video. Whoa! Yeah, so for this tutorial I made 3 little dungeon maps, just kind of keeping it pretty simple, keep the scope kind of small for this tutorial. But I've got kind of this entryway right here, and you can kind of go up and go over here, enter this room over here, and we got a little pit you can fall in. And then also up here, we've got another level. And eventually I'm going to make kind of a bridge that, bridges this gap right here after you light some torches with our new item, which I'll show you guys pretty soon. And as far as the item, I've got a little sprite here. This is going to be like the fire wand, basically. And it's going to shoot this little fireball, which is really not that great. Kind of looks like a hairball. But obviously, just getting it working is, a pretty big accomplishment. So I've got this torch right here, and this is from one of the downloads I did on those assets from itch.io. So I've got this torch right here, or kind of a fire pit type thing. You can see it's got the lit frames right here, and then also the unlit one right there. So we're going to use this with the fire wand and kind of light these to kind of make this little bridge on this level right here. And then I've also got this slime enemy. And this was also from a pack that I downloaded, but I also added a couple frames here to show him falling in a pit. So the slimes are going to be able to fall in this little pit right here. So that's kind of why I added those right there. Yeah, so with this, I'm just going to kind of speed through this. I'm basically just adding the 3 levels. We've kind of done this stuff before in different tutorials. But I start off with connecting them, with triggers, change scene, and connected to the outside as well. And one of the doors in the top room is not going to go anywhere right now, but I might add more rooms later. Um, and then I do the kind of blue rounded collision around the doors just to make it a little smoother. And then I do that red collision just on all the walls. So that's all I'm doing here, just kind of setting up the level with kind of the initial run through. So yeah, let's go ahead and start adding a new enemy. So we've got that orc from before, but let me go ahead and add. I'm just going to click on new actor, and it's not going to be the A button. It's going to be the slime. Let me choose slime right there. And you know what? Let me just right click and just set a starting scene. Also, I didn't mention it before, but I went ahead when I was setting up these levels. I added our map script and our scene start, so that should have most of those auto load kind of buttons and all that stuff kind of set up already. And so yeah, let me just actually I might make him solid, and I'll just click on run here. And you can see we've got our beautiful slime. Doesn't really do much. In fact, he's not even animated. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up in the sprites here. So if I go to sprites, choose that slime. Oh, that's a spider. Choose that slime. You can see that slime right here currently just has, let's see, idle down. I might have already set him up with moving. Yeah, it looks like idle just kind of just sits there right now. And then the knockback, I think right now it just blinks. I might change the knockback to use these kind of colors right here. It's kind of different colors. It might just look a little nicer. But for now, I'll just make it blink. That'll be fine. For this idle, I am actually going to add another frame here. So let's see. Yeah, I'll just have him just kind of be squishing himself just as he's idle. Okay. And I'll do the same thing here. Click on that. And same thing here, except he's facing the other way. Yeah, he doesn't really have very good directions. He just either looks left or right. But I figure I can mix it up for, up and down. That should be fine. And then the idle right will also kind of switch it as well. And then the moving right, I think it just looks like that. I might actually change this because I did notice, if you have animation starting a little too late, then it just doesn't look right. So I might actually get rid of this first frame. And yeah, just make his first frame kind of that squishing frame for all of these. And that should be about right. Actually, those all look pretty much the same. I guess for the down, I could switch it, but I'll just kind of leave it like that. It's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect right now. And then idle, or this is the knockback, which I also added here. And if I just click that, you can see he's blinking. So that'll be if he gets damaged. And let me go back to the game. Okay, so now he's animating, which is great. Very, very nice. I feel like his hitbox is a little too big. So if I go back to sprites, I can fix that. Back here, just look at that collision bounding box. Yeah, I'll probably just make it 8 by 8. Just kind of shrink that down. And then also kind of move it out probably by 4, then by 4. So yeah, that'll be his collision box right there, kind of in the middle. That way you can get, kind of closer to him as the player. And I might actually reduce the player's collision box as well, just to make it a little easier to go through doors and everything like that. So if I go to player, I can just, kind of shrink that down as well. Maybe just make it a width of 12 and just kind of move it over a couple pixels. I think that'll just end up working better for this game. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So now we need to think about the slime's logic. So right now he doesn't do anything, which, you might want if you just want a little slime that just sits there all day. But if I want him to be an actual enemy, I have to think about damaging him with my sword and kind of what'll happen when I damage that enemy. And if we remember, we did have a knockback on that other enemy, the kind of orc. So if I go back to this orc over here and just kind of go to on hit, group 1. So I believe this is the knockback for this particular enemy. So if I just copy this whole script, actually I can just say copy script for on hit, group 1, copy script, go back to the slime over here and go to collision group 1, on hit with group 1. I'll just paste, actually I can just, choose replace script. So that'll just replace everything. And the variables don't have valid names, and that's actually fine. I could probably just leave it like that, but I will actually rename it just to make it make sense. Because when I'm looking at this later, I'm going to say, what is local 2? I don't know what's going on. And store self position. And this is actually the HP, so I'm just going to call that HP. And so that'll subtract 1 HP when you get hit. And then local, I think this is the new Y, so new Y. And I'll also change this to new Y. That looks great. If HP is less than 1, then it flickers and stores its position, and then it hides itself. And this got key is actually for that orc that activated the key. So I can probably just delete this whole thing. And then it will, so hide self and then deactivate self. And actually, I can just get rid of hide self. I think that was for the key logic. So the key would actually show up after it deactivated itself. I'm not sure why I'm storing my self position in those variables. I might actually store those in my regular enemy X and enemy Y. And now that I think about it, did I? Oh, yeah, I did this backwards. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, but I'll just, I'm not sure if I rename it the same one, if it'll mess up. So I'm going to actually call this enemy Y and this enemy X. So that'll look much better and make more sense later. So enemy X, so it's going to store its position in the variables, then it's going to store the player position, and then it's going to look at the, oh, this is, yeah, new. Okay, why did I name it new Y and new Y? Yeah, that was, I don't know what I was doing. Okay, so the new X, the new Y, and then that is great. So if it's dead, then it deactivates. And then if the enemy is to the left, so it's just going to compare these. So if enemy X is less than player X, then the new X value is -1. And it does the same thing with if it's to the right. And then it modifies the Y if it's to the top or the bottom. And then after that, it sets the animation to that knockback state. And then it changes its speed and then moves diagonally, only colliding with walls. And then it waits for 0.2 seconds and then changes itself back to the normal animation. So let me just go ahead and test this to see if this actually works. Let me see. So my problem right now is actually that I don't have the sword. So the game just kind of starts fresh every time. So what I need to do is actually change got sword. I think my inventory is still using the variables. Let me just check on that. Switch. So if you got sword, you can actually activate the button to assign it to the A button or the B button. So I'll just in this scene right here, I'll just say insert event before, set variable to true, and I'll do that God sword. So I'm actually going to change this. So right now I've got like 4 variables and they're tracking, different potential things in my inventory. But I'm actually going to change this to use a flag, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit later. But for right now, I'll just say God sword equals true. So now when I run the game, I can actually use the sword. So if I go to the game, then I can go to my inventory. I can assign that to A or B. So I'll just choose A. And so yeah, I don't think I set the HP for that enemy, so it just kind of disappeared immediately, which is great. But I will set the HP. I think for testing, I'll put it pretty high, just on initialize, set to value. HP, I'll just say like 4. So I should be able to hit it 4 times before it disappears. So let me, again, assign my sword. So yeah, you can see that is working pretty good. It's doing knockback. It looks beautiful. And then it's disappearing, and that's awesome. If I go back to my inventory and then go back to the scene, it does currently respawn the slime. So depending on your game, that probably is not what you want to happen, especially if you just think you're going to a settings menu or something and then your enemies all respawn. And then, depending on the game, you can walk out and, walk back in, and you might want the enemies to all respawn when you do that. Or you might just want, the enemies to just stay dead. So it really depends on what you want when you're setting up your own game. What I did is I kind of set some variables for these individual enemies. So I'm going to introduce you to flags in variables. And to do that, first I'm going to just set up an actual variable to use over here. So I'm going to go variables, one of these global variables, and I guess variable 20 sounds good. I'm just going to rename this. I'll call it dungeon1 flags. So basically any of these variables can have flags in them. Usually you're just going to use either a variable for either a value or a Boolean, true or false. And basically a flag variable would be just a collection of 16 Booleans, like true or false. So you can just use one variable. So instead of, for example, we'll do this later with the inventory, like got bombs, got shovel, got sword. That can all be in one big flag variable, which I'll do later. So right now, dungeon 1 flags, I'm going to go to this slime, and on initialize, I'm going to check one of the flags, and I'm going to click add event and just search for flag. And so if variable has flag, so I'm going to look at the variable that I just made, which is kind of down here, Dungeon 1 flags. And you can see the list of flags right here. You can't actually change them right here. So to actually change them, we need to do a different one, not the if flag, but we need to set a flag or add a flag or clear a flag. So let me show you how that works. I'm actually going to do it on the scene right here. So I'm just going to click on, the actual scene itself, and then on initialize, I'm going to insert event before and just say add flag. Oops. Variable flags add. So this is going to add a flag. So you can, for instance, if I check this flag 1, then the flag 1 is going to be checked. If flag 2 was already checked, then flag 2 would remain checked. So just be careful, because there is, if you search flags, there's flags add, and then there's also flags set. So the big difference here is, if I check these two in set flags, then those are going to be checked, and then everything else is going to be false. So if I had already, added some other flags here, basically set would clear those out and only set these two flags right here. Which is nice if you just want a specific, set of flags to be, actually checked. But if you just want to add something, you want to use add flags. So I'm going to uncheck or delete this event, and then add flags. You can actually edit the names, I think, starting with version 4.2. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to switch that to the actual Dungeon 1 flags, and then I'm going to change this. And you can actually rename them, which is nice. And I will just say that there's going to be like, I don't know, 6 rooms maybe. So I'll just kind of rename these room 2, and basically with each room that we're going to go into, and right now we only have 3 rooms, but I might add some more later, so I just want to keep them kind of all together here. I'm just going to add this when they visit this room. I'm going to add room 1, so basically these enemies know that the player has already visited room 1, and then it's going to react based on if you've already visited room 1. Basically, it needs to decide whether the enemy should be in its default location with its default HP, or if it should load it from the variables. So, and to accomplish that, I'm actually going to add a little delay here on the initialize for the scene. So if I insert event before, I believe it's under timer. I think it's just called idle. So it's basically just going to wait a single frame before doing this. So that will let the enemy actually detect if this flag exists. And then if it does exist, it'll save its current location and just load the default HP. Or if it doesn't exist, then it'll do that. And if it already exists, then that means we are either entering this room again, just from the outside, or we're coming back from like the inventory, for example. So we're going to, in the scene, do idle and then add this flag right here, and make sure you do add and not set for reasons discussed earlier. And then I'm going to go back to the actual enemy here, and so on initialize, I'm actually going to check this Dungeon 1 flags room 1. So if that is already true, then we need to set the position of this enemy to the little variables that we have set up. So I'm going to do add event, set position, set actor position, and I'm going to switch these to variables, and it should be enemy X and enemy Y. And then also, I'm going to just do something before this. So basically, if the HP is 0 or less, then it's just going to deactivate and just not even exist. So if value say, yeah, less than or equal to. I always do less than or equal to just because, you don't want to have some case where you accidentally reduce the HP by more than one at a time, and then it's like -1. So this should cover all those cases. So if it's less than or equal, then you just deactivate actor. So I can just go ahead and just test this little part out right here. So um, HP is less than or equal to 0. And so yeah, let me just first go to my inventory, set that. Okay, so that right off the bat is really not working. Let me see what I did there. Right. Actually, I don't think I ever set the HP. So let's just say if it already has flag 1, so if you've already been to room 1, otherwise we would set the HP to 5. So let me just set that and see if that works. Okay, so that's also not working. It seems to set it down there. Right. So right here, HP equals 5. I need to. So down here, I'm going to do store position in variables. So insert store actor position in variables, and I will say enemy X and enemy Y. So let's try that. I believe it was just defaulting to, 0 or whatever. So if I go to my inventory, so now the enemy is in the correct position. So if I go back to my inventory and then back here, so now you can see it's loading back to the default location. And it's doing that because we're not actually setting the variable anywhere. So during the knockback, it is being set to, new X and new Y. But then you can see, it's being knocked back, and we're not actually setting the new variable anywhere. So every time it moves, basically we need to set that current position. So you can see it moves right here. So probably before this wait, I should do insert event before, store actor position in variables, and then store it in that enemy X and enemy Y. So now that I'm storing it after it gets knocked back, if I test it again, so now you can see when I hit it and I go to the inventory and then, go back, it's still, let me see, did I hit it enough times? Let me actually test that really quick. If I hit it and then I kill it. So yeah, currently that HP check is not working. So let me take a look at that. So it should be saving the position, and then also like if it's dead, it should be, disappearing. But if I go back to the on init, because this on init is running every single time, even if you just come back from the inventory. So, oh yeah. So here I'm setting the default HP as 4 on initialize, and then it's coming down here and, setting it. If it's 0, then you deactivate, but obviously it's just resetting to 4 every time, regardless. So once I get rid of that, it should probably work perfectly. Let me set my sword there. And I think I'm going to change this sword to automatically set to A. So yeah, now you can see after I destroy it, then it's gone. Even if I come back from the inventory, if I come back from here, you can see it's still gone, which is great. And so, yeah, one reason I did that whole flag system, I mean, you don't actually need those flags if you're just tracking the, position and the HP, regardless. I just wanted a way to actually reset the room if I needed to later. So like, for instance, in this scene out here, I could say on init, insert event before, and I'll do clear flags. And this is only going to clear whatever I check. So I'm going to go dungeon 1 flag. So if I clear that room 1, like when I walk out, then in theory, it should kind of reset whenever I actually go back in the dungeon. So let's just test this out. So just clear this. I kill that guy, go back to my inventory. It's still clear. If I go outside where that thing gets cleared, then you can see now it's kind of reverted back to um, the default. So that's kind of a nice way to do that. And then you can also clear that for other reasons, like you hit a trap and it resets all the enemies, or makes them respawn, or you have something like a blood moon type thing, or all your enemies respawn. Just kind of a little idea there, using those flags. And then also, if you're setting those flags, then you can kind of keep track of which rooms have actually been visited. And then later on, if someone is telling you, oh, you need to go to this, I don't think you've been to this certain room in that dungeon or something like that, then they could just check the flag and see if that was true. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of that little enemy with the knockback. Now, if I want to do enemy movement, because right now it's just staying still, I would need to do that on the update script. So let me go back to that enemy, go back out here, and go back to this enemy right here. And the best way I found to do random enemy movement is just on the update with just a wait. I've tried several things like the timers, attaching timer scripts. You can have up to 4 timers on each scene. But ultimately, I think wait is probably the cheapest from a CPU standpoint. I've also tried, every like setting up my own timer variable where I just add one, on update. And that just, yeah, it's super slowed down the game, which is with like 2 characters. So I'm going to just say add event. I'll just say wait right here. And for now, I'll just say wait 2 seconds. Actually, I'll do 2 seconds. That's fine. And then I'm going to have random variables, or a random variable. And then it's going to, depending on what that random variable is, it's going to, move, up, down, left, or right, just kind of randomly. So I'm going to say add event. I'm going to set value. So variable set to value. And right now I've just got HP. Let's see, I think local 5. I'm not using that. I could also do just temporary, use that as a random variable, but yeah, I'll just do local. I'll call that rand. So I'm going to set this as a math and then choose random right there. And then I'm going to do 8. So that should be 1 through 8 or 0 through 7. This is basically the number of random values. So then I'm going to, depending on what that is, so I'm going to set up a switch. I'm going to do switch, and the variable will be rand. And then I will say just 4 options. So, and looking it up online, I think I might have explained this before, but 8 is kind of the magical number that you need to make sure things are actually random. Otherwise, I think like if you do like just 4 as a random number, then 1 and 2 are going to be way more common. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's basically not really random unless it's a number that's divisible by 8. So you could do 16 as well. But in this case, I'm just going to do 8. So if I wanted it to move every single time, I could just say, I could have 8, and then I could say when 1 and 2, or 2, do something, and when 3 and 4 do something. But what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to say 1 through 4, and actually I think it needs to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So when it's 0, 1, 2, or 3, then it's going to move, up, down, left, or right. That way, when it's 4 through 7, it's just not going to move. So that'll just be part of the random, randomness. That way you don't just see each enemy moving at the exact same time every single time that the enemies move. Some of them will just stay still, randomly. So I'm going to start with 0, and I'm going to choose add event, and I'll just say move relative. And let's just use the kind of built-in directions inside GB Studio where 0 equals down, and then it goes counterclockwise for whatever reason. So I'll just add 1. Actually, I'll add 2 tiles for Y, and so it'll move 2 tiles down. So yeah, I'll just copy this for the other various numbers here. So basically, if it's 1, then it's going to go right, which is x2 to the right, and this is -2, on the number 2, and then finally the number 3 is going to be -2 on the X and 0 on the Y. And then very importantly, I need to also save the enemy location, because otherwise it'll move, and then if you don't save that location, then if you reload or if you go to the inventory screen or whatever, it's just not going to have that location unless you happen to have also hit the enemy. So I'm going to add event. Basically, it's going to wait 2 seconds and then move, down, right, up, or left. Assuming it's 0 through 3. If it's 4 through 7, it's just not going to move. And then I'm going to save the. I'm going to collapse that else so I don't accidentally add something there. Then I'm going to save the position in variables. So I'm going to store its own position in its own variables. That way that'll have it for when you reload and stuff like that. So let me just test that really quick, make sure my logic makes sense. So every 2 seconds it should either move or stay still, which, statistically it's going to move eventually. It has not moved yet. Oh, okay, there it goes. So yeah, it moved to the right. And I can actually look at the variables here. So yeah, in build log, yeah, so it just moved down. The random, so yeah, that's 4. Okay, so 0 is straight down. 5 is just not moving. 7 is not moving. 2, it moves up. Moved up again. Randomly moved up 3 times in a row. It didn't move, it didn't move. Tried to move up again, it couldn't because it's colliding with the walls. And yeah, so I think this is working pretty good. You can see it's not moving all the time. And the thing about the number is, it's got this weight, but that doesn't actually kick in until after the movement. So it is going to move, and that'll kind of freeze its update script until it gets done moving, and then it'll start the timer over. So if it doesn't move, that it has a chance of moving again quicker. And that'll be nice also if you have multiple enemies, which we can actually test right now. So let me actually just make a couple copies of this guy. And I always like to, add a bunch of enemies just to make sure like there's not some weird problem where it just really slows down the game. And you'll notice like if it gets slow, it'll be pretty slow. Currently, I don't have any collision like hitting the enemy, causing me damage or anything like that. So yeah, it all seems like it's pretty good. And you can tell the timers or the weight is a little bit different, so they're not going on exactly the same time, because if they hit the wall, then the timer or the weight resets a lot faster. I might actually make it collide with actors as well. So let me go back to, let me just delete all these extra slimes, and then I'm just working on one, and I can do on update. And I'm going to change all of these to collide with actors. So options, actors. That way they don't kind of overlap themselves, which could kind of be kind of annoying. Because, you could see them all building themselves into a corner. And yeah, let me just start with 8. There is a limit, the number of actors. I think you can have 10 or 20 in a single scene, but there's also a limit of sprites on horizontal. So just keep that in mind. We might see that if they all kind of group together there. It might start flickering. Yeah, like you can see this one is kind of just not showing, and that one's not showing right there. So yeah, just be aware there are limits in just the Game Boy hardware with like the total number of sprites you can kind of show in a row. So this seems to be going pretty good though, like it's not slowing down or anything like that. If you limit the on update script, with weights, then it's a lot more useful for having, enemies like this. Sometimes you do want things to, kick off, on update every single frame, but that is pretty expensive CPU wise. So just keep that in mind. And let me do one final test here. So I'm actually going to use my sword and attack all these enemies. So if I switch to my sword, okay, let's see. Yeah, they all seem to be in the same spot still. Oh yeah, you can tell that limit's being reached. Okay, let's see. And I want to try to attack it while it's moving as well, which might be a little easier if they were moving slower. So let me actually just, I'm going to change this just to have a slower movement speed just for testing, because I did run into problems where I had, and I'm going to change it to just every second, where I had, a lot of enemies and they were all moving. And then sometimes when they moved, they just wouldn't get processed correctly for some reason. Um, and yeah, let me do that. And now they should be moving a lot slower. So I should be able to see. Okay, so you can see that problem right there. So this enemy, this enemy is forever, I guess, stuck in this constant flickering state. And I believe that is because we attacked the enemy when it was moving. And yeah, you can see I did it with that one as well. We attacked it when it was moving. And so that interrupted um, the on update script, but it didn't actually interrupt the on update script. So the on update was moving. So basically it was on its way to, whatever position, like, 2 tiles to the right or down or whatever. But if it never reaches that, then it just kind of hangs in its on update script. So that's kind of a problem if you've got, if you just have enemies that don't have knockback, it's not an issue because you just hit the enemy and whatever happens, it still does its movement. But if it moves and it's in the middle of moving and you hit it to do a different movement, then it never finishes its first movement. So my solution for that is, let me see if I go to this enemy here. Let me go to the on hit by group one. So basically, right before I subtract the HP, I'm going to insert event before and just search for update. Then you have this option right here. So stop actors on update script and start actors on update script. So if I do stop, then that should fix that issue and I can just test that really quickly. Let me get my sword activated there and let's see, let him move. Hopefully he'll move, up, down, left, or right and not. Okay. So that fixed that issue. So you can see it was moving and I hit it, but it didn't have any problems with, flickering forever or anything like that. So now the only problem is it's not doing its timer anymore because we stopped the on update script. So at the end here, probably where you set the, store your position, you can just start the on update script again. So let me just insert event. Actually, I'm going to do it after the wait. So after it's done flickering, just to avoid any other random problems. Insert event after, I'll just say start on update script. So it kind of paused it and then it should restart it just straight from the top. So once you stop it, it just kind of basically stops the whole script. And then when you start it, it doesn't, or at least it shouldn't start from where it was. It should just start from the beginning. So just with the normal timer. So let's try that again. I should really move him away from the wall when I'm first starting, but let's see. Okay, so I hit him. He flickers. It's normal. That's great. And then he moves again. So that's good. And I'm going to test a couple more things here. Let's see. Oh, right. It's it's moving really slow and he has a knockback. That's okay. Right. So I think the movement speed was probably fine before. So I think it was just like speed 1. Let me just start that back up and see if the the knockback looks better. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's fine. That's just the regular movement speed. If you wanted the knockback to be quicker, or hit them harder or farther, you could set the speed to be higher, and then just set it back after the enemy's done being knocked back. But I think for now that probably would work pretty good. And I am going to just do a quick test with a lot more enemies. I just want to make sure that this enemy is solid before copying him a bunch and putting him places. Um, so yeah, let's see. And then, I think when it gets knocked back, I think it is not intersecting with actors. So I think I can knock him into other actors, which is a potential problem. So yeah, let me actually fix that knockback as well. So on hit, yeah, self move relative to this new X and new Y, your options collide with actors. So now I shouldn't be able to hit the slimes through other slimes, which, isn't probably a big problem, but um, it can be annoying if you. Um, oh, right. I need, and that's a problem with, doing all these copies. So you have to kind of delete them. And later on, I am going to try to set these up as prefabs, which is an option over here on the left. So you can, I could just have a slime prefab. So then I could just change it here, and then it would update all those slimes. But for now, I'm just kind of getting it set up. So I don't want to kind of deal with prefabs right now. So let me set that sword. And let me see if I can hit it into. Okay, so yeah, they are stopping, so I'm not able to hit them into each other, or underneath each other, basically. So yeah, that looks pretty good. And then if I stop, or if I go to inventory and go back, then they all stay. If I go out of the dungeon because the flag reset, then they should all come back. So yeah, those slimes look pretty good for now. So yeah, let's move on to this next room. Since I've kind of got the slime set up, and I could, kind of spread out the slimes a little bit if I wanted to. Looks beautiful. You have plenty of little enemies to fight there. I've got this next room, and it's got a pit inside it. So I'm actually going to, let's see, what am I doing with this one? Okay, yeah, and on this scene, I'm setting the sword to true and everything. So I'll just, actually, you know what? For testing, I'm just going to copy. I'm going to copy that got sword equals true. Copy event. I'm going to paste it right here. And then this one over here, I've got add flags to dungeon 1 flags. I'm going to copy that as well and paste that here. But I'm going to change room 1 to room 2. So this will be like room 2 over here. And currently, it's not the starting scene, so I'll just set it as the starting scene. Then if I run that, you can see I can be in this room. I've got my sword works. The pit currently doesn't do anything, so there's a couple different ways to do pits, at least in my experience. So you could just instantly, as soon as you walk over, just kind of, change your, basically kill the player and make him respawn right there. So let's just start that for now. And that could be like all you do, just depending on how how your game is and everything like that. Eventually, I'm going to have a little trigger right here that kind of pulls the enemy or pulls the player towards the actual hole right here. But for now, I'm going to just kind of add a trigger right here. So I'll just say trigger. And it'll be right here. And I believe I've got the player sprite set up. Let me see if I go to the player sprite. Okay, yeah, I have not added the falling animation here. So I'm actually going to add a new animation, and I'll just close this. I'll just call that actually, yeah, right here is where you set it. So this new state will just be called falling. And it's going to be fixed direction, so there's not going to be any different ways to fall. And then I'm going to use this little, yeah, these frames right here. So it kind of looks like that first, and then just two more. So you've got that smaller one right there, and then this one where you just kind of disappear. And I also did this for the slime as well, which I'll incorporate here in a little bit. Um, yeah, that's the falling state. So, if I wanted to, actually, why does it still say new state? Sometimes, okay. Oh, I probably didn't press enter. So over here, let me just, yeah, edit that. Oh, maybe I need to click on the little pencil over here. So now it's called falling. You can also right click over here and just click rename. But let me go back to the game. And just as an example, I'll just set animation state. I'll do the player and just change that to falling, just to kind of see what that looks like. So you can see if I walk over the trigger, ooh, I fell down. The only problem is, I'm actually still alive and I'm able to move around. You can see I get reset if I leave the room and come back. So obviously I need to change at least one thing there, turn off my direction keys. So if I, right before changing to falling, I can say attach script button, and I'll just override all of these. And so it's not going to move. It's going to change to falling. And then I think I'm going to add a wait, just a short little wait, like maybe 2 seconds. And then after that, I'm going to change scene and just basically reload this scene right here. So it already defaulted to that same scene. So I can just move that. Yeah, it's actually hard to drag them on top of each other. So you sometimes have to click on it and then just manually change it right here. So if I just wanted to, put it right there and make it face right, then I would do that. So changing the scene will kind of reload the whole thing, which I think is easier than, manually resetting a bunch of stuff. So if I do that, I fall and then it resets. And so now I can fall again. So when I originally set this up, it actually was falling closer to the hole, and I think it's because I was actually pulling the player towards the hole. So depending on how you want to set this up, you might want to put the hole, closer to the edge on the background, the edge of that 8x8 tile. Because you can see this one is just kind of right in the middle of an 8x8 tile right there. So, just depending on how you set yours up, you might need to adjust your background. That's all I'm saying. But let me go to here. I'm going to add 4 more triggers actually, and just keep in mind there is a limit of triggers. You can see that right there. It's 2 out of 30 triggers available. So, it's a big limit, but you can run into it if you're using a lot of triggers for a lot of things. So my first trigger, I'm actually just going to set this one up first and then just kind of copy and paste it for these other directions. But I'm going to set this height to be 4. And all it's going to do actually is it's going to set a flag. I'm going to add a event, and I'm going to set flag, variable flag set, and I'm going to choose a new global variable actually. And this variable is just for pulling. So I'm going to call this being pulled. Okay, so then I'm going to just set the directions right here. Right, left. I guess I could do down, right, up, left if I wanted to keep it in order. It's kind of your own personal preference there. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's just how the Game Boy is set up. And, it's set up with directions like 0 through 3 or down, right, up, left. So it might help later if you want to convert any of those to the actual direction, like numerically. But being pulled, if you enter this, it's going to be pulled to the right because this is the one right here. So we want it to be pulled towards that hole. And then if you leave, um, I'm going to add an event, and it's actually going to be clear flag. So, and for the same one, being pulled, so it's going to clear being pulled to the right. So if you enter it, you're being pulled to the right, and if you leave it, you're not being pulled to the right anymore. And to actually make the player be pulled to the right, you need to add some kind of actor that has an on update script. So I'm just going to click right here, add a new actor, and just put an actor right there. For now, it could be the A button. That's fine, but I'll just make it transparent because that's what I eventually want to do anyway. And basically, this is going to run all the time. And if any of those flags are true, then it starts pulling the player in whatever direction that the flag says the player should go. So on update, just to keep it simple, I'll just have a basic if flag, if the variable has a flag. I'm going to change this later. So if being pulled to the right, add event, and I'm going to say set actor relative position, and I'll just say x1, and actually I'll do x1 with pixels instead of with tiles. So let me just see what happens when I step into this trigger right here. Right, I don't think I set, okay, yeah, it's setting itself position. I want to actually do the player. So let me just fix that. So player set position relative, and yeah, if I enter that trigger, you can see it just really quickly moves me over, and then also you can see that flag is not being cleared because I have not left. I have not left that area, and you can see it's potentially a problem. And then also, I think, yeah, if if this actor is out of my sight, then it stops running its on update script, so I can get kind of close before it starts kicking me over again, which is pretty funny. So there's a couple problems with this. So I think the first change I'll make is instead of set position, I'm going to actually move the player. So I'm going to say insert event before, move actor, move relative. So actor, move relative. And I'm going to do the same thing in pixels. I'm just going to move it 1, and I'm going to delete this set position relative. Okay, so let's try that now. Right, so I, again, did not set it to the player, so let's just fix that. And so now you can kind of see it's working a little bit better. So it's kind of pulling it towards the center there, or towards the hole. And you can see it's still kind of got that problem where it just keeps doing it regardless. So one thing I want to change is I don't want to pull if the player is using their directions in either the same direction or the opposite direction. If they're walking towards the hole, they can just continue walking that way. And if they're trying to walk away from the hole, I want to stop this pull action. So to do that, I'm going to separate out this logic a little bit. So instead of just doing, if being pulled right, just move it 1 to the right, I'm actually going to set a variable here. So I'm going to insert event before, set value. Okay, and yeah, local 0 should be fine. I'll call that x pull, and that'll be a positive 1. Yeah, I'm actually going to move this after this whole if statement. So I'm going to go through all the different various flags and then modify those values. But then also right after this x pull equals 1, I'm going to add an event, and if button held, and if they're either holding left or right, then it's going to set x pull to 0. So before it even, I'm going to set to value. So before it even, tries to move it, I'm just going to revert it to 0. That way, when I do try to move it, it just won't move it. So let me see, I'll just change that variable to x pull, and this one will also be a variable. Maybe I'll call that local 1. just do Y pull for now, and I'll implement that a little bit later. So just making this one change, like, so yeah, let me restart this. And yeah, so I think what we need to do right now, it's trying to move the player by 0, basically every frame. So we actually need to put this into an if. So the whole thing. So instead of if being pulled has flag 2, I'm going to do another if above that. So insert event before, and if, actually I'm going to go if variable compare with value. And I am going to change this to the pull. So being pulled is 0. So if it's not, if nothing's happening, then, if there's no pull flags, basically that whole variable is going to be 0. So I'm just not going to do anything. But if it's not 0, then I'm going to do all this stuff. So I'm going to say else if being pulled as flag 2, etc. And then after all that, then it's going to move the player. But if there's no pull variables at all, then it's just not going to try to move the player, basically. So this is going to make, it's going to make this use less, CPU, because it's not going to have to run through the whole if statement every time. And then also it should kind of make that logic a little bit cleaner. So now you can see, like, it pulls me and then I get pulled. I'm going to reset these flags when you enter the level. That'll be the next thing I do. But you can see it just kind of pulls you towards the hole there, and then you can get out and you can walk away. So basically, if you're just right on the edge, then it'll kind of pull you out, or try to pull you towards the hole, and then you can just kind of get back out of the hole, no problem. So yeah, that looks pretty good. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to change this on init, and I'll just, actually, I'm going to say set flags. So variable flag set, and I'm just going to set all of them for this being pulled, and I'm just going to leave them all blank. So that means, after I fall in the hole and the level reloads, then they're all going to be set to false, basically. So if I go over here again, then it should all be set to false. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Another thing I want to do is actually lock the position, which you can do with that on move. So yeah, go back to on update. Under the options, you can lock the direction. So I'll just go ahead and lock it horizontally and vertically. So that means when I try to start walking back, it will go ahead and just lock that position based on where I try to move last. So it'll look a little bit more like you're being pulled, down the hole, and it's not going to keep turning you around kind of immediately, which I think is a little bit better. So another thing I want to do, this is basically as fast as you can get it, because the on update is running every single frame. The only problem is it's waiting until the player moves, 1 pixel, and then it's running the next pull movement. So something I found that works pretty good is just doing a thread for that. So instead of doing this as a normal thing, I'm just going to do it as a thread. So insert event before, thread start, and I'll do that. So this is going to run kind of independently of the update script. So it'll call this multiple times. So every frame, it'll call a new thread potentially. And since it doesn't take that long to move, it's not going to build up a bunch of threads or anything. So like if I go down here, you can see there's currently 1 thread. So you can see it pulls it a little bit faster. And yeah, it makes it more like you're actually being pulled down there. You can still resist it, I'm pretty sure. Right, so we're still running into that problem where the player gets there, but he's not able to move out. And I believe that problem is it's still running this uh, movement, this move relative, even if these are 0. And even if they are 0, it just kind of interrupts the player's natural movement. So we just need to check if either of these are not 0, then we actually run this. So let me insert event before. And if value, if variable compare with value, and I will say, yes, if I'm going to do an expression here, and I'm going to do an expression here, and I'm going to change this middle one to comparison, or actually, yeah, Boolean, and then I'm going to choose OR. So that way I can do 2 expressions here, and then I can do this thread. So I just need to check player X, or actually the X pull with a $sign, X pull, and make sure when it pops up, you just click on it. If you just type it in, we did this in another video. If you just type it in, it doesn't do anything. You'll just be really confused. But if you just type a little bit and then actually click on it, you should see it highlights in green, which is great. And then same thing with Y pull. So, and then I just need to say equals 0, maybe equal 0. And if Y pull equal 0. And actually, I need to check if they're not 0. So if they don't equal 0, if either of these are not 0, then basically that means we need to actually run this thread. If they are both 0, then you don't need to do anything. So I'm going to do that if, X pull not equal 0 or Y pull not equal 0, then it's going to actually run that. But you can see now if I go here, I'm able to quickly kind of get away. And I could make this a little bit wider. I mean, I'm not going to have it be that wide, but just so we can see for testing purposes. And you can see it just kind of pulls you to the right, and then you can pull yourself back to the left just by clicking. So once you just hold left or right, then it just starts moving you kind of normally. But if you just get really close to the edge, you have a risk of falling in. And that is kind of how I would do kind of a hole like this in a action adventure style game. So I'm just going to kind of put all of these all around, and using these same flags and everything. Let me just check the logic here. So on enter, on leave, that's correct. I'm going to just copy this and put it right there, make the height 4. So right here, I'm just implementing the other directions. So I just kind of copy the triggers, change the actual triggers themselves to be the correct directions. And then I go over to the actual hole controller and make those changes. So, just add cases for those other directions and, make sure to get all the directions correctly and everything. So now if I kind of walk near it, it kind of pulls you quickly, and then you're able to escape if you don't go too close to it, basically. So I think that looks, pretty good. There is a little bug if you, yeah, I think probably what's happening is it's just not being reset. So if I go down to what the actual pull is, if I look at that pull variable, yeah, so X pull is currently 1 and Y pull is currently -1. So I think that's kind of a little logic error there. So I think the problem is when you fall, it just doesn't reset it. Um, Even though it should, because you're like leaving you're leaving those areas, but that is fine. I'm going to say for that whole controller, if I go here, yeah, so I think I'm going to change this, actually, all this logic for this hole, or like the center of the hole. I'm going to put it into the actual whole controller, since that should be controlling the logic. So this should only be setting the flag. So I'm going to say on enter, insert event before. Oh yeah, add flag, variable flags add. And I'm going to look for that pull being pulled. And then I'm going to change this one to falling. So falling. And so that's all that this is going to do. And then I'm going to let the whole controller actually control what happens when your flag becomes falling. So I'm going to select all this stuff here. Let me actually just minimize this so I can see all the stuff I'm selecting. And I'm going to copy that. I'm going to make sure to erase it from this here in a second. And I think before this, if being pulled has flag 2, I'm actually going to do another if statement and then put everything here in the else. So if I insert event before, if variable has flag, if the pull being pulled has the flag falling, then I'm going to do all that stuff I just copied, or else I'm going to move all that stuff in there. So if it's 0, do nothing, or if it is falling, then do the falling stuff. And if it's not falling, then do all this other stuff. So falling should kind of take precedence over anything else. So let's just try that out. First, I'm going to go back to that hole, like I said, and actually just delete all the stuff that I moved over. So delete events. So now all this hole is doing is just setting this flag. And also the whole controller, after you, and I think I'm kind of doing this wrong. So the scene on initialize is actually, resetting. Let me see. Yeah, so this this whole controller on initialize is kind of erasing all the flags, which kind of works, but I think I'm going to actually put this into the on update. So when it actually, right before it changes the scene is where I'm going to do that. So I'm going to just clear all the flags, basically set them all to false. I could also choose clear flags and check all the ones that I want to clear. But if you do set flags and they're all unchecked, then they'll all be false. So, and then I'm going to change the scene right there. So on initialize, I'm going to get rid of this set flags. And then on update, it's going to get rid of the flags if you fall in. Otherwise, you'll still have flags and you have to deal with all that. So let's go ahead and try that. Okay. So it's kind of pulling you in. Okay, interesting. I got some kind of glitch there. I think probably what happened. Yeah, so it's it's trying to set the animation state to falling for itself, which does not really have an animation state falling. So I'm going to switch that to player. And then, yeah, that works pretty good. And it just, pulls it up. I don't see any kind of random problems right now. And this hole isn't really like, some kind of advanced, thing that's super hard to avoid. It's a giant hole in the ground. So, I just wanted to add a little bit of kind of flavor to the hole. So it just makes it seem like, you're kind of close to the edge. So you might fall in if you're not careful, which I think, a lot of games kind of do that. So you can kind of see how that works right there. And I did notice the X pull and Y pull are still sometimes being set incorrectly or just not resetting. So I am resetting the flags, but I also need to reset just the variables themselves. So I'm going to, when it does falling and it resets all those flags, I'm also just going to insert event before, set value, set variable to value. And I'll do X pull is 0, and I'll just copy that one and do Y pull as well. And I also made another small change. So I actually, in my player sprite, I actually changed the collision box just to be actually 8 by 8, but instead of 12 by 8, like I had it, I think 8 by 8 actually is kind of what I want. And also, it's going to, when I run it, it's just going to look a little bit better. And, obviously I could change my, background sprites if I wanted to, make it look like it's falling a little bit further into the abyss there. But I think this looks pretty good for now. So let's add a couple enemies here. I'm just going to copy a couple little slimes from the other scene over there. And the slimes are going to have a problem because they can go onto the hole and it's not going to affect them. So the real question is how to solve this, because this is all based off of triggers. And in GB Studio, triggers only affect the player. So there's no connection between other actors hitting the trigger. Nothing, goes off based on that. So we need to use their update code or have an if statement after every time they get moved. So you can either run the update where it's just constantly checking for the location to be within a certain bounds, or you can just every time it moves, you can just check the location. And I think I'm going to do that method. That way I just don't have something running on update, every single frame potentially. I mean, there are ways to kind of get around that. You can stop the on update script and then only start it when you need to. But in that case, you might as well just check whenever you need to check. In this case, we know that these things are only going to move when they either get hit or when they just do their regular movement. And I don't think that I need to check, like halfway between their movement or something. Like if they move 2 up from here, they should just fall in. And if it looks kind of cartoony for them to be, floating for a half second, that's okay. It's just a video game. So what I'm going to do is after, so they move here, and let's see if it's, if it's left, right, up, or down, they move. And then right after they move, they store their self position in variables. And then I need to insert event after. So after they store their variables, and I'm going to do if variable compare with value. So we're not going to compare the HP, we're going to compare the enemy X. So they just stored their location in their enemy X and enemy Y. And basically I just want to see the location that I want them to fall in and if they are in that location. So I think they should fall in if they are, I think it's fine for them to fall like in the corners, if they need to. That's absolutely fine. So the way to check that is just move the actual enemy and then just look at the actual position right here. So you can actually see their position right here. So this is X10. So let me actually minimize some of this so I don't have to scroll up so much. And if it's, in this case, greater or equal than 10, so I'm going to change that, comparison greater than or equal to 10. And then I need to check 3 more things. So I need to make sure it's greater than or equal to 10, which is also this guy up here. But I also need to make sure it is less than or equal or greater than or equal to a certain Y value, which in this case is 12. So I'm just going to kind of do ifs inside of ifs right here. Let me go back to this guy. So if this, then I'm going to check if, actually, I'll just copy this. So copy that, paste it there. Then I'm going to check if enemy Y is greater than 12, greater than or equal to 12. And so that's the greater than or equal to. So that's going to check if the enemy is just over here somewhere, basically. So now I need to make sure it's less than these values right here. So less than 14 and less than 17. So I'm actually going to just copy this or paste this if again. I'm going to change that to less than or equal to. And this one, can't remember. Yeah, 14. So less than or equal to 14. And then that is going to be the enemy X less than or equal to. And then we're going to do the enemy Y as well. So enemy Y. Okay, and actually I pasted greater than or equal to, so I'll just do less than or equal to. And then less than or equal to 17. So basically we're just going to make sure that it's in that box. And if it is, if all of these are true, basically, then we can just change set animation. Yeah, set animation state. And I don't know if I added something for the slime, but I do want to do a falling animation for the slime. So let's just go ahead and go back to sprites, go to slime. And right now it's just got the default animation and then knockback. So I'm actually going to add an animation state, and I will just call that falling. Falling. And I do want to make sure it matches the player one. Yeah, it's just called falling there as well. I think that just makes it easier for GB Studio. So if I go back to slime, so this is falling, and it doesn't need any directions or anything. So just fixed direction, and I'm just going to do that one first, and then the slightly smaller one. And I just made these. I got the slime sprite from somewhere else, and then I just made this just kind of in a sprite or something like that, and just kind of manually did that. So yeah, it's got those 3 frames, so it'll go boo, just kind of fall down, disappear. It's beautiful. If I go back to the game world, then I can set that. So I'm going to set that to falling, and I'm not going to loop it. And I think right here, I'm just going to do a wait. So I'll just say wait, 1 second for it to finish its animation and everything. And then add event deactivate actor. So it'll just disappear and stop trying to move and all that stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and try that. Yeah, so it just fell immediately. Let me start that again. And yeah, it just fell pretty much as soon as it had its X and Y set right there. So obviously I'm not going to start it on that actual spot right there. So let me just delete these other ones, and then I'm going to copy this new one with the falling logic. Oh, and actually I'm going to change, you remember we had it checking a flag on initialize. So if it already has flag room 1, I'm actually going to change it to room 2. That way it'll actually save with whenever I, restart the level and everything like that. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy, not when I restart the level, but when I load the inventory screen and everything. So those two just immediately jumped in. They're like, I'm tired of this. That guy jumped in. So yeah, it looks a lot better if they don't actually start on the whole, because it takes a while for that to kick in. So yeah, let me just assign my sword here. Oh, you know what? They came back, so that's potentially a problem. Yeah, that guy fell in. Yep, they all seem to be falling in pretty well. They aren't respawning at the correct. Actually, they're respawning at the correct location, but they aren't being, deactivated. Which, let me take a look at this. Right. So whenever we destroy, whenever we deactivate them, we should probably set the HP to 0 because it's going to remember that. So basically we deactivate it and then we restart the level, and then it's like, oh, hey, I'm deactivated again. Haha, great. So now I'm going to insert event before it deactivates, set value, and I'll just say HP 0. So now if I start it again, so let's see if they just randomly go in again. Okay, that's great. And then if I go to inventory, go back out, okay, they're still there. So let me look at the on initialize. Right, I don't think I changed all of these. Let me actually look at this. Okay, yeah, so I only changed one of them to HP equals 0. So let me just do that and copy them all again. and paste them. Maybe we can even try more slimes. Okay, let's see these. Okay, they fell in. That's great. Now let me check my inventory and go back. Okay, I think they are all kind of remembering where they were and if they were destroyed or not. Yeah, so that one, so I think I actually need to set the HP before the animation starts. So let me make it simple, just delete all of them and then just change one. Yeah, so before all this wait, because if it's falling when you go to the menu, then it just falls again, um, which, is kind of funny. But now if I hit this enemy, I can hit him into the hole, and then he falls, and then he remains in the hole. And if I go back out and back in again, you can see that one is now gone. I could destroy this one. It stays destroyed, hopefully, when I go back out. So now it's all working pretty good. One more thing I actually want to do here is we did all this if enemy location thing, but it was only for the random movement. So I actually want to copy that. So I can just say copy event, and then we got the on hit, and this is where it actually does the movement, and it gets knocked to the left or right or whatever, and basically right after it sets the position, it's going to store its position. I think before it even tries to start doing this, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'll just put it right here and see what it looks like. So paste event before, and then, so it's going to check its location there. And if all that's true, then it will do all that and probably just forget about all this stuff. So let's see what happens right there. Okay, so it just fell in really quickly, which I think is pretty good. Let me actually make some copies of this guy and I just have more chances to hit him in. Just make sure that feels good. So I'm going to assign my sword, hit that guy in. Oh yeah, he just fell right in, which is great. And he ran out of HP. That's okay. That guy fell right in. Yeah, I think that's fine. They're falling, pretty quickly, but yeah, that works pretty good, I think. Let me just try to move it after the wait and just see if that feels a little better. Let's see. So if I've got my sword, I can hit him, and yeah, that still feels pretty good. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's fine. So yeah, I think that's the slime pretty much all done. I'm going to add some sounds to it later, and also some sounds for other parts of the game. Right, I just realized why that slime was falling. It looked like falling so quickly. It's because I set the animation speed to 7 right here. So we probably want to actually just reset it back to 4 when we're setting this, HP to 0 and all that stuff. So I'm just going to do animation speed down to 4, and then, yeah, I'll just kind of copy this slime again. That's fine. So yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Yeah, I didn't realize that it was just animating way too fast. It's just kind of hard to notice things like that. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good now. So now I want to add the fire wand into this room, just kind of as a little object that you can find. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to copy this other chest over here. So this is the one that kind of has the sword right there. So I'm going to just take a look at it, take a look at this script right here. So on interact, it's got all these things that it does. Okay, It's going to show you some text. It's going to move that actor and then hide that actor later. Or it's going to show the actor and then hide the actor. So we want to make sure we reference that that fire wand sprite instead of the sword. And I guess I can just copy that actor over actually. I don't think it has any information, but it does hide itself on initialize. And I'll just copy that actor so we can have a reference to that. Just paste it right there. So this is going to be the fire wand. So I should change it to that fire wand.png that I came up with. So on initialize, it is going to be hidden. And then I just need to make sure, yeah, that is correct. That's correct. On interact is, yeah, I don't need to move my position. I think that might have been moving the sword's position originally. I'm just going to delete that. And then show, it's going to show that fire wand. And yeah, set the player animation to got item. That looks great. And the text is, I found the fire wand. Okay. Maybe I'll say, looks like it can set some stuff on fire. Okay, great. And then we also have this where you try to look at the chest, but it's already been found. So I'm going to just say, I guess I misspelled remember there. That's okay. I'm just going to say, I wonder if there are any more fire wands in this. I'll just say in here. And then I'll just copy that and paste it after. Nope. I guess I took the last one. So it's kind of a funny thing. And I also came up with a solution for checking if the player is using a dialogue. Because the problem is if you have your sword set to A or whatever your default interact button is, and then you try to use a sign or you try to interact with a sign or a chest or anything that you're basically, looking at, it's going to check if you're in dialogue before actually using the sword. And the way I currently have it set up in my assign action buttons, if I look at this, it's actually going to, so yeah, it's going to look at the A button slot, and if the sword is assigned to the A button slot, it's going to first do an idle, so it's going to wait till the next frame. So we are going to miss out on, instant sword action, but just a single frame is not really going to affect anything. And then that'll give time for the actual game to run that dialogue. If it's not in the dialogue, then it'll call the sword button. And if it is in the dialogue, then I'll just set in dialogue to false right here, just in the actual assign action buttons section. So I don't need to, if I'm doing it here, then I don't need to do it on the, each time I have a dialogue. I don't also have to, set it back to false. It'll just set to false automatically if you were using that weapon. And you can also see it calls activate HUD, which is great. I don't actually have the HUD working in this dungeon yet. I think I am going to update the HUD to be 2 tiles tall, but that might be for like the next video or something. I also should check if you're in the dialogue before I do this, or set in dialogue. So that way, if the player's facing up and you haven't got the sword, I'm actually going to change this for now to got wand. Yeah, I think regardless, I'll just set it to true before all this. Just if you interact with it, instead of before, set to true in dialogue, which is somewhere in my various variables. That looks pretty good. So that's going to be set to true, and then it should set to false whenever whenever that action button gets processed. So yeah, just starting the level, the chest looks closed. But if I go out and go back in, it's actually open. I don't think I'm checking the right on init, so let me just change this to God Wand and start that again. So now if I go to my inventory, go back, you can see it looks pretty good. Now I can use it. Wow, I found the fire wand. Looks like it can set some stuff on fire. Okay, so little problem. Instead of hiding the fire wand, it hid itself. That's just how it goes sometimes. Hide actor. Okay, so I'm gonna hide actor 10 instead of hiding myself. And then also got wand equals true. And I am going to change this to flags pretty soon here. But for now, I think this should work just fine. Okay. So, wow, I found the fire wand. Looks like it can set some stuff on fire. So now if I actually go to my inventory, I can actually see the fire wand. I can assign it to A or B. Currently, it doesn't actually do anything. Yeah, and I think now I'm ready to kind of implement the logic of the fire wand. First, I think at this point I will kind of redo the inventory screen to use that flag. Go to the inventory screen, and up here I'm going to look at where the logic is for all of these inventory slots, and I think it's just in the scene itself. So yeah, whenever the player sets itself, actually it spawns in a position, and then this is what actually sets where the A or B button is when you spawn in the scene for the first time. So if it's already got something assigned to it, then it'll show it. And then this is where you actually set the, you assign, the various uh, this is where you assign the various buttons to actually do something. This is where you tell the game that the A button does something and the B button does something. So I don't think I need to change any of this stuff except for these condition got sword, and I think also for this one, I think it's the third slot. That's the fire wand slot. So I'm going to use that slot to actually set the fire wand as the ability that's being used. So with this check, I need to just look at Got Sword and just see where that's being used. So I'm actually going to go over here to the variables, and I can find all these, but it's going to be a lot of work to find all of them. But if I look at the inventory scene, it'll actually just show me exactly where this variable is being used. So God's sword is being used right here. This might actually be the only spot on this whole inventory screen. So I just need to insert an event before, and I'll do if flag, if variable has flag. And I don't think you can change the variable flag here. So I'm actually going to come over here and just use this variable 22, and I'll just call it inventory. Let's see, I'll say got items. I'll just call it got items. That sounds good. Now I'm going to call it inventory flags. Inventory flag, just so I kind of understand what this is actually used for. So inventory flag, it hasn't been used. That's great. So I just need to come back here, and I'm going to say if inventory flag has flag 1. And to actually name these, I need to insert an event before inventory, like uh, not inventory, flag, like either flag add or flag set or something like that, then you can actually edit these flags. And I will change this from inventory moving to inventory flag right here. So now I can actually edit these, and I'm going to do it kind of in a certain order. So got sword, that'll be the first one. The second one, I'll say got bombs. The third one, I can say got wand because it's in the third place anyway, and I don't feel like messing with that. And then finally, got shovel. I think that was kind of the original order that we had. So if I look at this, got sword, got bombs, got wand, got shovel. So that's going to be the name of them. I'm not actually going to add those flags right here. I'm going to delete that event. And then I'm going to check. So if got sword, I'm just going to move all this stuff from the got sword to if inventory flag got sword. So if I do that, then I can just delete if got sword. And then, I need to unselect these before I delete this one, or else it'll delete those as well. And so I'll just do that, delete the if got sword. And actually, let me see if there's anything in this else. Nope, there's not. So I can just delete that. That looks good. Then I'm going to wrap number 2 in an if as well. So actually, I can probably just copy that if statement and paste it before. And just delete all these, delete all those events, and then move all of these into this one. And I'll say if got bombs, and then that will set the B button slot right there to the second little area. So 7, 5. Oh, right. Yeah, so the A button and B button are kind of just right on top of the actual inventory slot. So that's kind of what that should look like. And then, yeah, show the A button and inventory selected equals the second slot. That's great. And I'll just kind of repeat this here. So yeah, I'm just repeating it for 3 and 4 right here. You probably get the idea. So yeah, I updated all of the A button and all of the B button as well. Just went ahead and added all these flags. So up to inventory flag 4. So yeah, it's got all 4 options for both buttons. And okay, yeah, I think for some reason I have this if statement inside the flag check, and then on this B button I just took it out, so the switch does not have that if statement. So I can actually just move that before this. So if I'm trying to switch, the A button to something that the B button already is, then it's just going to turn off the B button basically and hide it. So I can just go through and delete these events from this one now that I move that out of there. Okay, delete. Now let's test it and see if it works. So yeah, I have the sword already. Oops, I pressed the map button. I have the sword already. So let me go ahead and assign it. Okay, I can't assign it. That's right. I think I still have to do some work here. So if I go back to this room, what I'm doing on init is doing got sword equals true. So I'm actually going to insert event before, set flag, or add flag, I should say, and choose that inventory flag, got sword. I'll just go ahead and do got wand too, so I don't have to keep opening that chest right there. Okay, so now I should have both of them. And now I can set it. I can set both of these, but I think the actual drawing of the items is still based on those old variables. So if I go back here, I can actually go to got sword, and I can see everywhere that references that. So the inventory scene is still referencing it. Right. So yeah, down here, you can see if got sword. then it's going to draw that right there. So I just need to replace this. So insert event before, if flag, and I'll just copy this 4 times actually. So I'm going to just say copy event and then just paste it after. So I'm just going to change this for each of the ones that I'm going to move. And if got sword, if got bombs, if got wand, if got shovel. And then I just need to actually move this. So let me kind of minimize this a little bit so I can just drag it easily. So if you have the sword, then it replaces the tile. Otherwise, it's going to just draw the blank tile. So I'm going to do that for all 3 of these right here, just to kind of get them all using that flag field instead of the individual variables. Okay, so now let's test it out. And I'm actually going to go to look at each of these variables. So got shovel is not being used anywhere. Got wand is still being used by, I think, this chest. So let me just go ahead and fix that. Yeah, so I'm going to say insert event before, if flag, got wand, and then I will just move everything there. And then also move the stuff in the else. Okay. Then just delete that. Oops. Sometimes if you have stuff selected, it will delete it, even if you right click on something else and choose to delete that. That's always a problem. So let me just delete that, if got wand. And now I can go to if got wand, and it's still being referenced by this somewhere, probably on a knit. Yeah, so if got wand, insert event before flag. Oh, I need to do if flag. It's still being referenced by this somewhere. Oh, got wand has flag 1. Oh, I must have chosen the wrong thing here. So if inventory flag has got wand, that's probably more accurate. Okay, it's still saying it. Oh, it's probably activating got wand. Yeah, so got wand equals true. I'm going to say add flag. Okay, I hope I could confuse you guys with all of that inventory variable switching around. Basically, instead of using these individual variables, they're just Booleans. I decided that the flag system was probably better. So now you can see I'm not using got wand anywhere, so I can actually just rename this and it'll just kind of release it as a variable I could choose if I want to. It's not a problem right now, but there are only 500 variables. So if you use a variable for every single thing and you end up having a really big game, it can really add up. So I think just it's a good practice to try to use flags when possible. And got shovel, I could probably get rid of that, release it as a free variable I can use. And yeah, probably like that got key 1, that was back in that dungeon, and I could just have, like the dungeon flags or something like that instead of, got key 1. And yeah, got bombs, I can release that. And I will fix the got sword a little bit later, probably on my own, but it's all this stuff down here. It's still referencing got sword, but I'll just not worry about that for now since you guys probably know how I would fix it. So let me check this inventory really quick, see if that is all up to speed and everything's working. Okay, the A button works. The B button assigns it. I can't assign things to these other ones because I added the if flag check for those. So yeah, I think it's working pretty good. Currently, the sword is the only thing that actually does anything. The actual fire wand does not currently do anything. So let's go ahead and make the fire wand actually do something. So if I have the fire wand selected, right now it's on the B button. The B button just doesn't do anything. So where we need to add it is I'm going to make a script here. So right now I've got sword button, and then I've got assign action buttons. So assign action buttons, I think it runs every time a scene loads. And basically it just looks at the inventory and then it decides what happens when you press A or when you press B. So yeah, you can see this A button slot, number of options 4. When it's number 1, it's basically attaching the sword button script. Like I said earlier, it does idle, and then it checks if it's in a dialogue. And if it is not in a dialogue, then it will actually do the sword. If it is in a dialogue, then it'll just set dialogue to false, and then it does the sword button. So I'm actually going to copy this logic. I'll just copy this whole attached script to a button. So I'll just right click and choose copy event. And then I'll go to number 3. So that's our fire wand position. So then I just need to make a new script for the fire wand. So I'm going to go over here to scripts, and I'll just call this, I'm actually going to rename these button fire wand. So I'm going to call that button fire wand. I'm going to call this one, you guessed it, button sword. I think it's going to be easier since I'm getting so many scripts over here if I just have everything kind of on its own, little section. So just alphabetically, it's pretty easy just to organize things like that. If it all starts with button, then I can just look for button shovel, button inventory, button sword, and then I don't have to scroll around for all the different buttons and stuff like that. So button fire wand. So yeah, I think all I'm going to do is just call a projectile. So I'll search for projectile. So launch projectile. And the sprite sheet, I've got that fireball that I made. I kind of showed you guys that. If I go to sprites and go to fireball, it's actually not a very good fireball. Kind of looks more like a cat or something. But you can see there's 2 just little animation frames. Obviously, my artwork is really great. So, if you're able to make something as good as this, it's pretty impressive. And so that's the fireball. Let me go back to the game world and go back to the button fire wand. So whenever that button is hit, it's going to launch a fireball. And I think I'll change the lifetime to like 0.5. So half a second. Loop animation. And then collide with, I think 1 should work. And let me take a look at this. So yeah, this is collision group 1, so that's good. If I go to source, then right now it's just going to launch at a certain direction, so whatever to the right. But really, I want to do actor direction of the player, and I think that should be pretty good. Let me see. So if I go back to projectile, if I want to do like an initial offset, I can make it, I think this is pixels, so it'll be 4 pixels away from the center of the player, which I think will probably look pretty good. So let me go ahead and try that. First, I need to assign it in the assign action buttons. So, and we're just working on the A button right now. If you're in a dialogue, I just need to change this to button fire wand. So it'll call that if you're not in a dialogue. So let me just run that and see what that looks like. Okay. So I think I might have already spawned with the fire wand. Yeah. So I can just set it to A, and then, it shoots a little fireball. Currently, it doesn't actually do anything to the enemies. That's okay for now. One problem is there's no limit. Basically, as fast as you can press the button, it'll shoot projectiles. So if you did want to limit it, I mean, there's a couple different ways you could do it. You could, add a variable that, tracks like a cooldown time. But what I found it, works pretty good is if you put a wait in here, then it's not going to execute this again until that wait is over. So if it's already executing it, it'll just continue just waiting for that. So if I just add event await. So I could just say, maybe I'll just do 2 seconds just for the initial kind of make it obvious number. So now if I, again, do A on my fire wand. So yeah, you can see I'm tapping as fast as I can, and I'm only able to do it every 2 seconds. Something else to consider though, if I've got both of these assigned and you can see it is delaying the, I just changed it to half a second. It is delaying the fireball, but you can see you can also just use both weapons kind of at the same time. So there's no keeping track of if you had just pressed the A button versus the B button, etc. So you're able to just kind of use multiple items at the same time. So that's where a variable might actually come in handy to track if you have multiple weapons that you can use, and you just don't want you don't want them to swing the sword and shoot a fireball at the exact same time. You would want to do some kind of variable there. So let me just try to set that up really quick. So back in assign action buttons, I think we actually just need to put it inside each of these attach script to A buttons. I think by default, the variable should be false. So I'm going to insert event before, if false, and I will just find a global variable I'm not using, like variable 13. And I'm going to rename that. Guess I can't rename it right here. I'm going to rename it over here. Variable 13, just rename, and I'll call that cooldown. I'll call cooldown active. Okay, so if I go back to that assign action buttons, so if false, so if the cooldown is not active, then it will do this. And it will run, call script button sword. And then after call script button sword, I'm going to right click and say insert event after and set to false the variable cooldown active. Then I just need 2 more things. I need to actually set it to true. So right click, insert event before, set to true. Same thing, cooldown active. And then I'm just going to put a wait right here. So the wait will just keep running, and then eventually it'll time out, and then it'll set to false. So if I insert event before, wait, and to test this, I'm going to do, I don't know, like 3 seconds. And yeah, I think I'll just go ahead and test that with just this one. It's the sword button. So let me just run that. And I've got my sword already, so let me assign that to A. And yeah, you can see it does not go off until 3 seconds is over. So that's pretty solid. There is one problem though. So like if I use it, the timer seems to be functioning perfectly, but if I go to like a different scene and I come back, you can see now I just can't ever use my sword again, I guess, because it's never going to be false. The cooldown is always, or it's always going to be true. The cooldown's always going to be active because nothing is setting it back to false when I load this scene. So I need to say in my scene start script, I'm going to actually add insert event before, set to false. And then I'm going to set that cooldown active to false. So anytime you load back in from a different scene, or if you change scenes, it's going to reset that cooldown. That way you're guaranteed to actually be able to use your weapon again. So now if I use my sword again, it does the cooldown. And if I go to this scene, I can immediately use it again. So I'm going to actually change this to like frames for the wait and do like 15 frames. And I think I can just copy this to my other buttons. Just kind of copy this whole thing, actually probably this whole attached script. So I'm just going to copy this, copy event. When it's 3, I'm just going to delete that whole thing and oops, just paste this. And instead of sword button, it's going to call, or button sword, it's going to call button fire wand. And for the fire wand, maybe I'll make the duration a little bit longer, maybe like 20 frames. And then I'll set cooldown active back to false. So that should be good. And I'm pretty sure I can just copy this entire switch and then just, instead of A button slot, I can just switch it to B button slot. So let me just copy that whole switch and just delete my old switch, paste it again. And then the variable will be B button slot. And then I just need to switch this to B button. So switch those around. So yeah, I don't think there's any reference any deeper than the actual buttons or anything like that. So yeah, so it should check if the cooldown is active, and if the cooldown is not active, then it can check if there's a dialogue, and if there's no dialogue, then you can, do the cooldown and all that stuff, and actually, do the fire wand and or the sword or whatever. So yeah, that should be working pretty good. So now I want to actually implement just damage to the enemy. So if I go back to that fire wand, it's actually on collision group 3. So I'm just going to make copies of this enemy once he's actually working. Let me move him away from the hole so he doesn't immediately jump in. And for the group 1, I've got all this knockback stuff. I don't think I'm going to do knockback for group 3, so I'm just going to copy some of these. So I don't need to like store any variables. I will do the HP is less than 1. I'll do the knockback, or the knockback state, which is just kind of a blinking, which is fine. And then I'm going to do the weight and set back to default speed. So I'll just copy all of those events. Yeah, copy event, and then come here and paste them. So that should work pretty good, hopefully. So I'm going to test just this guy first and then make copies of him. So if I go to my inventory, I've got my nice little fire wand, so I can use that. And yeah, it does damage. I mean, you could change the damage, at this point, if you want the fire wand to do different damage. Right now, it's just kind of doing a default of 1. I think I'll probably just keep it that way. Well, I found the fire wand. That's another thing I probably, yeah, I probably need to fix this chest. I think it's probably checking for the wrong. Yeah, so this is actually incorrect. That should be if you don't have the wand already. I need to copy all this to the else, and then I actually need to copy this stuff back to right up there. So that makes logical sense. So if you already got the wand, then it's going to call this. I don't think there's any if you don't have a flag. You've got the flag, and you can check if it's true, and then if it's false, you just have to put it in the else, or at least that's as far as I understand it. So let me just try that again. And yeah, I think if I just reload the scene now that I've got the flag, so it'll say, I wonder if there's any more fire ones in here. Nope, I guess I took the last one. Okay, so that works pretty good. So now let's do the last thing in this little dungeon tutorial that I'm doing right now. I should probably eventually add, damage to these slimes, but that's okay. So right now I want to put another hole right here. And then I'm going to put 3 torches right here. So you have to use this beautiful fire wand that you've got, and then you have to light the torches, basically. So that's what I want to do right now. So I'm going to close this and go back up here, go to right here, and I want to copy some other things from that room, actually. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy that hole right there, just paste it there, And actually, it's the same size, so that works out pretty good. I'm going to, I guess, resize that. It didn't bring over the size for some reason. That's okay. Width 4. So let me just check these flags. So yeah, being pulled up, being pulled down, and then falling. So I'm also going to copy this whole controller, which I should actually rename to whole controller because that's kind of what it is. So I should copy that, paste it, and I'll want to move this to right there. And I'm not sure why it's linked to like the map up there. That's a good question. But I'm gonna change this direction here. So I think it's in falling. So change scene to falling. I'm gonna make it up and then move it down a little bit or make it face up. And that should be pretty good. Oh, okay. So for some reason, this this whole controller is calling scene start. I don't know. I must have did that on accident. So yeah, that should just be called in the map init. So let me just go to this one and delete that. That is strange. Okay, I'm glad it wasn't just some random bug, but I guess I just accidentally added that there. So yeah, this whole controller. Let me actually just test this out. I'm gonna just set this as a starting screen or a starting scene, and I think I will copy these flags here um, from this other scene, and yeah, I'm gonna just go to here and paste these. So I've pasted these. I've got the sword, got the wand. That way I don't have to like collect them every time. And then this is going to be room 3 for the dungeon. So yeah, let me just test this, see if this hole actually works as it is, or if I need to worry about doing anything else with it. Okay, so if I walk up here, okay, it seems that seems to work. So what I'm going to do is add 3 torches right here. So I need to go to my torch sprite here. I go to torch. Right now I don't have the torch set up, but this is just another sprite sheet that I found online. And basically I'm just going to do default, and I'm going to just rename this one to open, since I think we're already using that name for another sprite sheet. I can't remember why. I read somewhere that you shouldn't have too many, different names for the animation states. But I don't know, maybe it doesn't even matter. But I'm going to just make a little and this is for idle. So that's default. I think it's going to have 4 different frames. And I'm going to move that one back over there. And do this last one here. See if that looks good. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then for this one, I thought I was already modifying the idle, but I think I can copy these. So if I just select them all, do copy, come over here, and do paste, then I can just replace all those. But that's okay. So I'm going to change this one. I'll just delete that, then add this right there. And actually for the sprite size, it doesn't actually need to be, 32 by 32. It can just be 16 by 32. So that looks pretty good. Collision bounding box, that's fine to just be those 4 right there. I could make it a little bit smaller, like if I want the player to go behind the torch, or I guess this isn't really a torch, but giant fire pit. And then I could change the colors if I want to. So you can just kind of highlight all of them, and I can just choose a different color. Yeah, maybe like this reddish one, just palette 3 right there. And these all should be the same in the scene, but I'll have to check if that's true. And then for this idle, I'm going to actually keep it that same color. So it looks really different when you light it on fire. You can just see almost like a glow or something like that. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the game world and just add those torches right there. New actor, click on that, change this to torch. Okay. And I'm going to have, yeah, I'll just have 3. So I'm going to copy, paste. And this, I'm just going to have the one in the middle be with its default like on, so you can see that there's actually a torch that you could potentially, light on fire if you wanted to. I'm going to do collision group 1 with all of these. And on init for the left one and the right one, their animation state is going to be that open. So yeah, I'll just copy this to this one right here, paste. So now if I run it, so now you should see that, that one has, and I need to add collision to this, so is solid. You can see that one is on fire. So now I want, if you've got the fire wand, I want you to be able to, light these on fire. So that's kind of what I want to happen. So to do that, I just need to change the actual animation when it gets collided with something from collision group 3. So I'm going to say on hit group 3, and this is one that's already turned off. So I'm going to say on hit group 3. I'm going to change these to solid, like I said. And on hit group 3, add event, set animation state to, default. I think that would be good. And I'll just copy that to the other one. And then I'm going to set a flag. And actually, after I do this, I'm going to change this on init to actually check that flag and then, change it if it's false, basically. So if you already lit it, it's not going to, turn off. But if you already lit it, then it should just stay, in its default animation state. Yeah, set animation state to default, insert event after, add flag. And I've got the dungeon 1 flags somewhere. Yeah, dungeon 1 flags. And for this one, I'll just call this like torch 1. See, this way, if you're using flags, then you don't have to, have tons of separate variables. These are all basically, Booleans that are just kind of grouped in here. So that's pretty nice. So yeah, I'm going to set that one torch 1 and then do the same thing with this one and paste it after. And I'll do torch 2. Now I need to do something when this actually, I want to not fall in the hole when it, when you light those two. So I kind of almost want like a cutscene where it kind of pans the camera over here, and then it does, it kind of creates a bridge type thing right there. And I think that would look pretty cool. So I think the best way, I mean, there's a few different ways to do that, obviously, but the way that I'm going to do it is when it gets lit, it's going to check also if, it's going to check if the other torch is also lit, and then it's going to check if this bridge has already been built. So I'm actually going to add another thing here, bridge built. And if if the bridge is built already, then if you hit that with another fireball, it's not going to do anything. But if this torch 2 is also lit, and you just lit torch 1, and the bridge has not been built yet, then it's going to do building the bridge. And then I'll just need to copy this onto the other torch over here. So I'm going to add event, and this is actually going to use tile replacement. So I'm going to say replace tile at position. Let me scroll down there so I can actually see. So I'm actually going to move this over a bit, and just till I can actually see what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm just going to do the top kind of left corner of this hole right here. So if I undo that, and you can get fancy and just do 8 by 8 at a time. I'm going to change it to 16, so it's just going to replace one big chunk, and then this next chunk, and then it's just going to do the other chunks down there. So it's actually going to do, I think, 2 at a time. So it'll do these top 2 sections right here, and then the next 2 sections, and then these 2 sections. And the only reason the tile replacement is actually going to work is because these tiles are unique. So keep that in mind. Each of these 8 by 8 little tiles actually has to be unique. So you'll see that's why I kind of added these random dots and stuff like that. If you don't have these, then it'll end up, if you replace these black tiles, for instance, it'll replace all of these black tiles outside the level with kind of the same thing you're replacing it with. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of how that tile replacement works. So to do that, I'm going to choose the items tile set. And obviously, if you had any tile set that you wanted to actually use, it might make more sense. Like I could actually set up a tile set that had, this green kind of edge on the edge over there. And then, or I could, actually do one that's a bridge, which probably would actually look pretty cool. But for now, I'm just going to do this blank tile set, and then you'll kind of see how it works. And obviously you can set it up with whatever tiles that you actually want. So yeah, I'm going to replace those right there. So I'm also going to replace, just copy this event and paste after. I'm going to replace those ones right next to it. So let me just test this. So it's going to, on hit with group 3, it's going to add flags to here. And then I also need to check insert event before if flag variable is flag. Yeah, do this right here, this dungeon 1 flags. First, I'm going to check if it's actually already been built. So if it's been built, then I'm not going to do anything. Otherwise, I'm going to check again, insert event before if flag, do that same thing, dungeon 1 flags. And I'm going to check for torch 2 since this is torch 1 right here. So if it already has torch 2 and it hasn't been built, then I'm going to start building it. And I'll just kind of do this for now, and then we can go on with the other tiles just to make sure this actually works. So yeah, let me test my fire wand, see if this actually works. Okay, so I can light the torch, and then you can see that bridge got built right there, or at least, part of it. It won't work again because, I guess it will work again. Oh, right. So on initialize, if the bridge has already been built, then I would need to actually do that. Oh, I'm not actually setting bridge built anywhere, so that's why it's just letting me do it again. But yeah, eventually I'm going to have bridge built and it'll actually work. And then I can, on initialize, the bridge will already be there and the torches will already be on. So let's go ahead and just kind of finish this up. And I'm going to add the next 2 sections. And then I think I want to add some sounds. I'm going to copy both of these. Actually, I'm going to make a wait. So insert event after wait, just to make it more kind of dramatic. Wait for 0.5 seconds. And copy event, paste after, and paste after again. And then with these, I'm just going to increase the Y value basically by 2 for each of those, and then by 4 for each of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then, yeah, and then I am going to add add flag. Yeah, you make sure not to do set flag unless you actually want to set them. So I'm going to do dungeon 1 flags, bridge built. So now the bridge will be built and it won't hopefully let you do it again. So no, I'm not going to do that. Actually, it would be good to test it with the sword to make sure the sword can't actually light it. Okay, that looks good. Let me test it with the fire wand. And I do have to do this one second because I haven't put the if statements on there. So yeah, that looks pretty good. So now what I need to do, and you can see it's not building it again because I already built the bridge. And unfortunately, it's not showing that the bridge is actually built because I haven't replaced them yet in there. But let me go ahead and just copy all this stuff, and I'm going to put it on the I'm going to put it on the other torch. So I'm going to copy this whole event. And for torch 2, I'll look at that and paste that. And then I'm going to check, again, if the bridge is built and if torch 1 is also lit, then it's going to do all that stuff and then say that the bridge is built. So no matter which order you do it now, it should apply there. And then also on initialize, I'm just going to say insert event before, if flag, dungeon 1 flags. Yeah, this one is torch 2. So if torch 2, and actually I'm going to just copy that event really quick. And if torch 2 is already lit, I actually need to put that in the else. If it's already lit, it'll just stay at its default animation state. Actually, yeah, I'll just copy this whole event and then go to torch 1 and do the same thing. So on init, paste event after. And so I can just delete that and change that to torch 1. So now that should work pretty good. This whole controller, it is looking at if being pulled equals 0. And so I think probably I could just add an if statement here. I mean, I could like stop its on update script and everything like that. But I could just add an event here. So insert event before, if flag, and I will do bridge built. Okay, yeah. So I need to change this one here. So yeah, this is the dungeon 1 flags. So I'm going to change bridge built. And then if it's already built, then basically it's not going to do any, falling or pulling or anything like that. But if it isn't built, then it'll still pull you and all that. So it's just going to check, do one last check before it starts pulling you into the hole. So let me just try to check that logic, see if anything kind of makes sense. Okay, so I've got my beautiful fire wand here. I can light it. The bridge gets built, and now I can walk across the bridge. It's amazing. And let me go back to a scene and see if it actually. So yeah, it is still letting me cross, but it's not drawing it because that scene is getting initialized. So I need to actually just copy this on hit stuff. So all this like replace tiles and all that stuff. And I need to just copy this whole section here. But I'm going to go back to the on init and paste that. And so if dungeon has flags bridge built, then it's going to just draw all of those. Okay, I don't know what flag it's adding. Oh yeah, it already has bridge built, so I don't need to add it again. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So now if I start it and I do the bridge, I turn on the torches. Let me just test all my logic works. If I just do one torch, I can go back. That torch is still lit. If I do that, it does the whole bridge. I can't walk on the bridge, or I can't fall in the hole anymore. I go back out, I come back in. Yeah, I would say that works pretty good right there. So yeah, you got the fire wand, you got your flying gerbil that lights things on fire. Yeah, it worked pretty good, I think. Let me see if I can do kind of like a cutscene type thing, because one problem is, and I haven't done it yet, but let me see. Okay. So yeah, it still lets me walk, and I mean, I guess that makes sense. While the bridge is being built, if you want to fall in it, you can. If I wanted to freeze the player, though, I could just set, while it's being built, I could just, assign buttons to the left, right, down, up, and yeah, actually, you know what? I'm going to pan the camera. So let's see. So right before here, I'm going to say insert event before, camera, move to, and I can just literally choose the position here. Let me kind of zoom in a little bit. So yeah, camera move to, oops. make that higher and make sure it's not going outside of um, the screen. It'll let you do that, but it won't actually be able to pan that far. Um, so let me just change that. So I'm going to do camera move to, and then it's going to start replacing the tiles. So, and then I'm going to move the camera back after it, completes the bridge building thing. So let me try that. Light that, light that. Okay, the camera moved. It kind of moved to the right first. I don't know if that's just like a normal GB Studio thing, and that's fine. I mean, maybe it moves until it can go diagonal or something like that. I don't really know. But so after this, the camera still moved. It does reset if I restart the scene. But after this, I'm going to insert event before. I guess after, I should say, and do camera, lock onto player. So then it'll move to actually lock on the player. And actually, I'm going to make the bridge happen right there. And I'm also going to insert event, attach script to button. That way you just can't move while it's doing the cutscene. And then after that, I'm going to say remove script from button. And insert event after. Remove button script. Okay, just remove all those from that thing right there. So now if I light it, and if I light the right one first and then the left one, it should move the camera. Whoa, you see it been built. And then you can move again after the camera moves back. So that's a nice little cutscene, just made that really quick. And yeah, I think now I'm ready to add some sounds to the game. But of course, first let me make a couple more changes. So the one on the right, if you light that one, it'll have different, different behavior than if you light the one on the left first. So let me just copy all of this. Before I do that, though, I am going to lock the start and select buttons, and I guess also the attack buttons as well. So make sure to unlock them down here. That way you can't go to the inventory and kind of mess up the timer with the bridge, and then the bridge won't be there, and so on. But if I just copy this whole event, go to this torch right here, I'll just delete this one, and then I'll paste it here in the else. So if the bridge is already built, you don't want to build it again. But if you have already the torch one, which I believe is this torch right here, then it will do all that stuff. So it should pretty much act just the same as this other one right here. This one is checking for torch 2 first, and this one is checking for torch 1. And this one lights up torch 2, and this one lights up torch 1. So that looks pretty good. And then one more thing I am going to change is, actually, I probably should have changed this first, but I just made another tile set here for the bridge. So I just want it to be, kind of look a little bit nicer. And I'm not going to go through and, change the other one. But if I just change this one right here to bridge, then I think that'll probably look a little bit nicer. So let me test that and just see how that looks. Okay, so I've got my one on the left, one on the right that moves. Oh yeah, that bridge looks a lot nicer. And I think I'm also going to change the colors on this scene just to kind of make it look a little bit more dungeony, since I am using color mode. I think maybe this one right here. Yeah, it's hard to see with all these layers. Yeah, I think that one probably looks pretty good. And I'll just fill it in with these other scenes right here, just to make it look a little bit more colorful, although it is kind of a brownish. So yeah, in this section at the end, I'm going to add some sounds to the game. So sounds in Game Boy are actually really tiny files for a lot of the sounds, like this gbfx.save. It's only 32 kilobytes, and it's got like 48 sound effects. It just uses the onboard speaker to programmatically make sounds. So I'm going to download that, this gbfx.save. He also has a another version that's gbfx2, and it's this yogitronomal.itch.io. So I'd recommend downloading those, and then you just put them into your assets/sound. Then you can use it inside GB Studio. So let's go to GB Studio. And if I want to add a sound to something, I would do, let's see, let me go to something that's actually going to have a sound. Yeah, like this bridge. If I want a sound every time one of the bridges kind of activates, I'm just going to insert event after and just search for sound. And then it would be play sound effect. And then I'm going to choose GBFX. And then the effect index is like the sound within this like sound file. So it's got like, I think 48 different sounds. You just want to kind of, change the index, and then you can press the play button to kind of see what that sounds like. So if I press play here, I think it's a little beep. I could go here, a little different beep. I think the one that I want for this particular one is like 29 or 30. Let me see what 29 sounds like. Yeah, kind of rock sliding sound. Yeah, I think 30 would be good. So it's going to play this, and I'm just going to copy that. So, after each time it replaces tiles, and actually, yeah, it replaced those. Okay, I need to do it up here too. So paste event after. So it should play it each time. So let's just go ahead and test that out. And I think I put that on the right torch. So let's see. Yeah, so I think that worked pretty good. I think I might actually increase the weight to, yeah, maybe just like 1 second. That'll give some more time for that sound effect to play. And yeah, so wait for 1 second, and then do that, and then wait for another second. So yeah, let's see if that's a little better. So yeah, launch that one. When I do this, hopefully it'll look pretty good. Oh yeah, that's totally like a bridge or whatever, just showing up. So yeah, I think that worked pretty good. So obviously you can add sounds to any part of your game. Right now, I just have it on this bridge right here. If I wanted to add a sword slash, I think that's actually a pretty good one to add. So if I go to button sword, I think actually doing it right here would be fine, just right when you actually set the animation state. So insert event before, do sound, play sound effect, GBFX. And I'm just going to look for one that sounds good. Yeah, I think 26 would probably be fine for slashing the sword. Let's just see what that sounds like. Yeah, I think that's fine for now. I might choose a different sound later, but now you've got, you're swinging your sword. And I think one more that I'm going to add is actually the fall sound. So whenever you actually fall, there's a pretty good one you can play for that. So let me add that here. That's in the whole controller. Yeah, so right before set animation state to falling, I'll just do insert event before sound. Yeah, I think maybe 36 would be pretty good for that. So let me just test that out here. So if you fall in, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Just a nice little falling sound. That sounds pretty good. So obviously, it's up to you what sounds you want to use in your game, but that's kind of the basics of how you'd add sounds. Later on, I am going to add music, which that's its own separate thing. I think that's pretty much it for this tutorial. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do in my next tutorial or how much further I'm going to take this game. If you do have anything you want to see in another tutorial, definitely let me know, leave a comment or something like that. Be sure to smash all those YouTube buttons if you want to. But yeah, this game's looking pretty good. It's We've got a little bridge we can build and everything, and we've got sounds, so it's almost like a legitimate game here. Pretty awesome. All right, I will see you guys later. Have a good one.